Hi YouTube, I am Jeff from Near Deaf Experience, and I'm here to talk about the Ableton Push 3 and a 24-hour challenge that I made to myself while I was waiting for my Push 3 to arrive. I'm posting this video because I hope that it's going to be informative and useful for people. If you have comments or questions or anything, maybe I didn't describe something exactly accurately, or maybe there's something I missed, please post those. Everybody can learn from my mistakes and we can all learn from each other's comments. The song that's playing in the background is the result of my 24-hour challenge, so I'm going to get out of the way so we can listen for a little bit. So I came up with this idea because I was most excited about the potential impacts of the standalone mode on my workflow. I'll explain that a little bit more later, but I wanted to see in the first 24 hours if it would live up to what I was hoping it would do for me. I would also like to see what other artists and creators could do in a similar 24-hour challenge. If you haven't gotten your push yet, or if you already have it, maybe giving yourself a 24-hour challenge just to see what you can come up with, and post the results because I'd love to see and hear them. I was hoping it would streamline the initial process, which is probably the most important one, of actually coming up with the things that make a song into a complete idea. After we've listened for a little bit, I'm going to talk about some of the concerns or issues that I had using the Push during my first 24 hours. I'm not going to try to do a comprehensive overview. There's plenty of YouTube videos out there already that have done that. I'm just going to focus on the things I think are the most critical and maybe weren't emphasized enough in some of the other videos. Specifically, the things I am concerned about are things that kill workflow. Okay, that was the 24-hour challenge result. The music you're going to hear in the rest of the video is from my initial attempts to integrate Ableton and Push 3 with the modular. Before I get into concerns or gripes that I had with the Push 3, I just want to say I think it is a fantastic device, and I really do think it's going to help my workflow quite a bit. Plus, it's going to give me a bunch of flexibility that I didn't have before. So I think it's a great thing, but I want to get into some of the issues that I came across. Issue number 1. Sometimes when I was working in the clip editor, note editing would stop working. I could go into edit mode, but the jog wheel wouldn't select any of the notes, and therefore I couldn't change anything about them. And that usually required a reboot. I think one time after doing something else for a while, I was able to go back and do it. But there were several times that it happened that required to do a reboot to get the functionality back. Number 2, I found sometimes that when I was trying to record automations, the button would show that automation recording was armed, and I could hit record and it would look like it was recording, but it actually wouldn't be picking up and recording any of the things I was doing, which is very frustrating because if you don't realize it right away, you go through the whole process and you think you've made some great automations, and then you realize they're just lost forever because they weren't actually recorded. That, again, required typically a reboot of the Push 3 in order to get it back, which is really unfortunate because, again, kills workflow and you've lost some, creativity or something you've come up with that you may have really liked. Number 3, there are some very core kind of basic functions in Ableton that are not able to be done currently in the standalone version of the Push, or at least I couldn't find a way to do them after watching a lot of YouTube videos, reading forums, looking at the documentation. And so these are things that I really am hoping Ableton is planning to push out in a firmware update or something, like the ability to rearrange scenes, the ability to set up outputs on CV instruments and things like that. There's a little more granularity on controlling, routing in the project. I feel like right now some of it's limited, but I bet they have plans to fix that. There's one other thing I wanted to mention that didn't make my top 3 concerns, and it's something that I've run into a couple times more recently, I mean, I first got the Push a couple weeks ago. It's taken me a while to sit down and make this video. But the problem that I ran into is sometimes the pads would all light up, but would be completely unresponsive. And usually, like if I closed that song and went to a different one, they would start working again. So I don't know exactly what's going on there. And I will say that exact thing happened both in standalone and controller mode. So something that I hope they'll fix. So let's talk about some of the strengths of the Push 3, since I highlighted some of my concerns. Number one for me is workflow. The ability to take this on the, to a different location and get busy and focus in on creating, musical ideas, I think is going to be huge. Number two is flexibility. I travel sometimes and I really like the idea of being able to make music without having to cart around a laptop, USB cords, interfaces, whatever, other stuff that would be required to do the same thing. The upgraded controls on the Push 3 coming from the Push 2, which I did have, are great. I really love the jog wheel. It makes it a lot easier to get around with the sort of multi-directional or multi-axis kind of capabilities. And just in general, I feel like the display and the interface and the flow is a bit better thought out this time. Obviously, Push 2 came out quite a while ago, so they had time to improve upon what was already a really good, well-designed device. MPE is great, especially with some of the instruments in Ableton. There's really good integration, like the drift instrument, for instance, where you can get cool, vibrato effects, and you're able to pitch bend individual notes. I love it. It's great. These are musical ideas that would take a lot more work to do in the older version of the Push. Probably the most important thing is the integration, which one would assume would be really good with the Ableton DAW on the computer. Just like with the Push 2, when it was connected in, to USB, worked really well. There's a lot of stuff in Ableton that I feel like they really just nailed it. They did a good job of thinking out how to make use of space and provide functionality that you need as an artist. I have some additional thoughts and comments that I'd like to share that didn't really make the top of my list, but I'd just like to mention them. One is, if you're into analog, modular synth gear, there is really good integration with Push 3, but it's a little tricky to use. At least I found it tricky to get set up. The Push 3 has some CV tools like templates in the packs, but it wasn't really clear when opening them up on the Push 3 what was routing where, and what I could do with them. So I really had to go to controller mode and put it on the DAW and play around with stuff to figure out, which of these patch chords was routing from where in the DAW. That being said, I was able to get CV out to work, and it worked as advertised. So before I go, I just want to say thank you for watching. I hope you found this useful. If you did, please reach out. It would be much appreciated. I have not made many videos to this point, and so just kind of building the channel out now. I'd like to get more subscribers, to get more exposure for my music, things like that, obviously. I think what me and my friend in our band make is has a limited appeal, because it's not mainstream. And so I'd like to get it out in front of more people. So if you'd like to check out our stuff, it's Near Deaf, that's Deaf with an F experience. We're on pretty much every streaming platform. Our music ranges in style, but there's almost always a pretty strong electronic aspect to it. And we're on everything. Just look for the picture of the two really good looking bald guys who are probably a lot more menacing looking than we meant to be. I hope I hear something from you, and have a great day.